Yeah, hello everyone. Today is the December 22nd. This is batch working group biweekly meeting. We have one item on the agenda for today. Before we go through that, just would like to remind you that this meeting is recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. So please make sure that you adhere to Kubernetes code of conduct. So yeah, as I was mentioning, there is one item on the agenda that I guess Aldo and Kante would like to discuss, which is Q roadmap. We have a PR, I think, discussing that, but I think Aldo prepared a short presentation. So I'm not sure, Aldo and Kante, did you have an agreement how you're going to proceed with today's meeting?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share the roadmap for the queue in the next year, and then maybe, yeah, you know.
Okay, let me share here.
Can I share the screen, or you can help me?
Yeah, I'll share the. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. You know, we are coming to the end of 2022, so we have a rough plan for next year about what we want to do in the next year, and there are several parts of there are two parts of the roadmaps. One is about the features we think we can finish in the next year, but it depends the time and the priorities. So we hope to share something with the community in this meeting, and hopefully we can get some feedbacks about like the suggestions and feature demands, just to make sure that we are on the right track. Okay, so during the sharing, if anyone have any questions, hands up, and we can talk about it in details. Okay, and I'll go through the list one by one for briefly introducing.
I think Aldo put together a presentation. Maybe it's easier to go through that.
Yeah, cool.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm actually adding a public link because I'm adding a link into the notes. 1 second, I need to change my account. Okay, that should work. Okay, so I already put a link in the meeting notes. So thank you, Kante, for bringing up the topic. I wanted to kind of give an overview of what we have been doing in the last release, what we're preparing for the third release. And also I wanted to give a quick view of what we as GKE developers are planning to do and where we want to encourage contributors. So let me just start. So we are planning a V0.3 release, and the estimate is mid-January. And we have two ongoing items. One is preemption. So if you're familiar with scheduler, there is preemption in scheduler 2, but the preemption is based on pods. So when there is need for space, we preempt individual pods. In Q, we are kind of trying to do the same, but at the job level. So when we preempt an entire job instead of likely preempting 2 pods from different jobs, which might fail. So this is atomic preemption, let's say. And there is 2 modes of preemption in Q according to our design. One is within your own resources, and one is among the resources that you share with the rest of the teams, which we call cohort. And if you open these slides from the link that I shared, you can open the issues. But for now, please, can we just stay here? Yeah. Yeah, if you're interested, follow the links. So that's one feature. The other feature we've been working on, it's a short-term form of all or nothing, which basically is just one after another scheduling. So we only schedule one job. We wait for the pods to be running, and then we proceed with the next job. This is as the name suggests, a very short-term solution, because we want to have direct integration with cluster autoscaler or the kube scheduler to do the atomic scheduling. But this is a short-term solution that is configurable. You can disable it if it's not something that works for you, because it can be very slow. So that's the ongoing. And then thanks to our contributors in the community, we've completed 2 more important tasks. We now have a performance test that is easily reproducible by vectors. And we have end-to-end tests thanks to Kevin Hannon. So this is, I think, the major things we have paid attention to for this release. And then we wanted to share what we think, or what are the priorities for us as GKE in 2023 H1, H2. Just for you to have an idea of what we're focusing on or our efforts on. But of course, if you have your own ideas, please feel free to bring them up. So can you go to the next slide, please? So yes, some of these plans we have some developers allocated to, but there will likely be minor tasks or bigger tasks where we would need help. But let's go over first through the priorities we already have some allocation for. So cooperative preemption, this is a second step or an improvement to the preemption we have, where we want to include information about, in jobs, the jobs can include information about when was the last time they did a checkpoint. And this is useful information for prioritization of what can be preempted. So likely we want to preempt jobs that more recently did a checkpoint. So that's that task. Graduate APIs to beta. This is important for production readiness. Once we move into a beta API, we will promise longer support for it and backwards compatibility. So that's an important step towards production readiness. Then we want to, as I mentioned, we have a performance test, and we want to start paying attention to it and incorporate learnings from there to improve performance. Yeah, there are easy tasks here. For example, incrementing the number of workers in several of the small controllers. That will give us better performance. And introducing parallelization, CPU parallelization, and so on and so forth. Things, easy tasks that can be done to improve performance, and more granular tasks can be done with profiling, which we want to add as well. And another thing we want to work on is some form of meta job. As you can see, it's the name is not established. That's kind of the idea. But the intention here is to have an aggregate job in which you can define multiple pod specs, right? For example, to support launcher worker paradigms. Let's take just as an example MPI. So you have a launcher that starts all the workers, and let's say your workers need GPUs. You don't want your launcher to also use a GPU, right? Because that would waste resources. So you would need two different templates, and that's what we want to achieve with MetaJob. But we don't want to rewrite an entire new controller. We want MetaJob to create multiple jobs, and then the MetaJob will be handled as a single unit by Q. And this is one kind of thing that could possibly make it all the way down to Kubernetes core, but I think it's fair to start in a project which has more velocity, such as Q. And that would be the idea. We start this in Q, we experiment, we iterate, and then possibly, let's say 2024 or later, we propose to upstream it. And then we want to encourage a few things, both in upstream and in Q. In upstream, I don't know if Wei is here, but Wei worked on scheduling gates, scheduling readiness gates, which is a very useful building block to block scheduling. This is particularly important for Spark applications, because in Spark, you could create a launcher pod, and then the launcher pod would create a lot of pods without asking for permission, right? We'll just create the pods. We want some control over that, and then the solution we proposed, along with Wei, is to add this scheduling gates feature in KubeScheduler. So this is an important building block that will be very helpful for Q. And yes, so it's currently in alpha. We want to encourage the beta release in 127 and the integration of Q with it. And here is this last item is where we would like help from the community. We want to start integrating Q with multiple existing frameworks, in particular MPI job, TensorFlow job, Spark, as I already mentioned, and Ray.io, which Ray has some similarities with Spark in terms of how it works. So yes, these are the frameworks that we know of are top of mind for multiple customers, for multiple communities. But of course, if you have your own, please bring it up. One important thing to notice is that to integrate with Q, we need a few hooks, right? We need a hook to basically suspend pod creation from the jobs. So that's kind of the first step. In each of these APIs, we need to add this configuration, this field, and then Q can integrate with it. Yeah, so that's kind of what we want to achieve in H1. Of course, we might not be able to achieve everything, so some of that will spill into H2. For H2, things are less clear, but this is also a good opportunity for the community to suggest what's top of mind for you. So, but we have a few ideas. For example, bulk provisioning. This is something we are already thinking of designing, but we don't have a complete proposal yet. But the idea is that cluster autoscaler can provide an API where we can request a bulk of nodes or a bulk of resources. And then the cluster autoscaler can respond saying, I'm able to provision these resources, or the resources are already provisioned, and then Q can unsuspend the job, having those guaranteed resources. It could even be more powerful because the cluster autoscaler can say, I provided all these resources in the zone A, and then Q can inject that zone as a node selector in the job, and then those pods will directly land in those nodes. So that's bulk provisioning. And then another idea is to work on budgets. As you might know, Q is basically a quota system, right? Quota means that at every point of time you cannot surpass those amount of resources. Budgets is more about you cannot surpass the amount of resources in a given amount of time, right? If you've been using the jobs if your job has been running for 10 hours, that's taken into account towards your budget. 10 hours multiplied by how many resources you're requested, the job requests. So that's something we want to achieve. Next slide, please. So as I was saying from the beginning, we would welcome your ideas. These ideas that I presented are coming from our our view of things. But if we are missing something, we would like to know. If something else is top priority for you, you have the resources to work on them, you're more than welcome to come and discuss and present your designs. But we already have some smaller or bigger features that we know are important, but we don't have enough resources to work on, and they are basically up for grabs. So one nice one interesting task or even design is a partial admission of jobs. So you can say things like, my job ideally requires 10 workers, right? But I'm okay having only 5. So depending on how much quota there is available, or when we have budgets, how much budget there is available, you can start on you can start a given size. So that's one. pprof, this would be very useful for improving performance. And yeah, we all of the Kubernetes core components have a pprof endpoint. So some ideas from there can be grabbed. And then some non-coding tasks, such as setting up the documentation. We've been hearing from multiple of you in the chats, in the Slack, or from some user experience research we've been doing, that the documentation is not the best. So definitely we would welcome help there. And another point is the kubectl plugin. We have kubectl has some limits in terms of how useful it can be for CRDs. It's hard to surface some complex information such as states. So a kubectl plugin would be helpful. Another problem we have in Q is that most of the information about a job is not contained in the job. It's contained in a separate object, which is called the workload, right? If you want to know why my job is not admitted yet, why is it not running yet, you have to look at a different object, right? So having that available in a single, listing through a kubectl plugin would be super useful for easy of use. And a web-based dashboard or Grafana samples. We had a contributor share some Grafana samples with us. I'm not sure even if you can have Grafana templates, if there's such a thing. But those would be useful, or a web-based dashboard to see all the information about the jobs. So these are all apps for grabs. Again, there is two things here. This is again our vision of things. Kante is suggesting that we publish actually the roadmap in the repository for all people to have a permanent view of it. And that's owned by the community, right? So if you have ideas, we will try to put most of what we have here in these slides into the pull request. But if there is some priorities for you, please join the discussion in the pull request. And at this point, I'm opening up for questions, or back to Kante if you have more things to add.
Totally, the presentation covered most of the features we planned for the roadmap. Just one point about the multi-class support, and some of the users from the community asked for the multi-class support, but we think it's far from us now, because we still have plenty of features to implement in the following. So I think it's a long-term feature, and that's all.
Yes, I think given all the features we already have for 2023, it might not be possible to start working on multi-cluster in 2023, but definitely it's something in our minds. And I don't know if we have the folks from G Research here, but we are in conversations about how to synchronize the efforts, because that's the bread and butter of G Research, of Armada.
We will have a presentation next working group meeting.
Yes, in January 19th, they're going to present their current efforts. So we might have an avenue there, but still, yes, it's in our minds, multi-cluster, but it's unclear how much progress we can do 2023.
Hey, although it's sorry, go on. Who else was going first?
It was me, Kevin. Go ahead.
I was curious about with Kubeflow. I've been noticing that there's like a lot of progress going to try to combine all these operators into like a single training operator. Is this are we kind of focused on integration one by one for each of these operators, or I guess I'm not going to be the one doing the Kubeflow, but I am curious because when I read the like the threads and stuff, it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on in the Kubeflow community around consolidation of those operators.
Yes, I think given how the architecture of Kubeflow is today, the Kubeflow training operator, I think it's relatively easy to do the integration for all of them at the same time, except for MPI job, which is a separate project for now. So yes, if it can be done in a single effort, that's great. But if there has to be prioritization, I think TF-Joe is probably the most popular, possibly followed by PyTorch, I'm thinking. But it's likely that a single effort could support all of them.
So I had some thoughts on this one. I've been looking at all these APIs, MPI job, TF job, PyTorch. And my hope is that we don't really need to integrate with any of them directly, and we can mostly replicate that using the multi-job API. So when I look at TF job, for example, or PyTorch, like 90% of what the controller is doing is setting up some environment variables, and so it doesn't feel that integrating with each of them is going to be sustainable long term. I think we can come up with a solution that basically a single API that would enable you to deploy all of these training operators using a single API. But I don't want to discourage people from integrating if they wish to do so. So that's a path that's possible. But I'm just commenting in general about like that common training operator that Kubeflow has. So there are multiple APIs. The implementation is basically a replicate, like it's really minor differences between them. It's mostly just making it convenient to set some environment variables that these different libraries use. And so, yeah, so that's, my hope is that we will have that multi-job API before that, and we would be able to basically support all these types of workloads using that API.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I guess in general, it's a question of timelines, because some people might want support for TF job in 2023, and once beta job lands, it's probably going to be at least 2024 before Kubeflow is able to migrate to the API. So we probably will need a midterm solution, which is direct integration. But again, it's up to the community, right? What's the highest priority for the community?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be in general the problem that I'm dealing with also is all these different CRD, and like you have Spark, Ray, and I know I've looked at Dask and a few others, and their AP, like their pattern is very similar, but there's also a lot of, I guess, business logic built in some of those operators where, sorry, in some of those CRDs. So I do like the idea of having kind of like a meta job or multi-job API, but also I think for short term, it does make sense to do the integrations with the community driven CRDs from the projects like Ray or Dask, for example, or Spark Operator to encourage more encourage more utilization with Q and other popular projects. But I do like the plans for both. Thank you, though.
Any other questions? We've got Dave, I think you want to.
I was just going to go back to the inquiry about Armada and just point out Kevin and I are here. If someone had questions about Armada now, you have an audience, or if you want to wait till presentation next time, that's fine too.
We only have 10 more minutes, so maybe.
Yeah, probably a little too much to get into. I didn't catch who was asking about multi-cluster, but feel free to reach out to and check out the armadaproject.io, because that's definitely what the space we're playing in. We've got a lot going on there.
So one question for the scheduling gates, it says in the 2023 encourage, is there, I guess it is already in alpha for 1.26. So what more items are you interested in for that one?
So first, graduation to beta, because that means enabled by default, and integration. I mean, the API is there, but Q is not using it. And I think the primary case, or the first case which will need this feature is Spark. So probably the Spark integration would be the first user of such integration.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? So we will have this, I guess, documented in the repo, and please feel free to check our like open issues as well, and suggest any enhancements. Communicate your priorities as well to us. Yeah, it should be an exciting H1 effort. All right, I guess if there are no more questions, we can conclude here. Happy holidays, everybody, and see you in the new year. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.